I'm going to go out on a limb in this video and talk about where I think Bitcoin's price is headed the next couple months, where I think it could potentially pump to the next couple weeks, as well as where it could potentially bottom. So let's go ahead and jump into the charts here. I know it's a crazy chart, so if you've seen my videos in the past, you know all about it. So I have this major trend blue line. That's where our all-time high was. This is where we fell and we tested it here in March 2022, and then we fell below it, and then we jumped right above it, tested it as support, tested it again as support, and then jumped above this orange line. So that's why the blue line is there. And this orange line, it is a very long-term trend line. We're hovering right at just under 28,000. And if I go ahead and pull back here, you can just see how well Bitcoin's price just magnetizes itself to it. This is all the way here back in 2019 and then 2020. And you could just see again how well Bitcoin's price just sticks to this orange line. We went well above it, then went below it, then went above it, then below it, and then we hovered, and then just exploded to 65,000. And here is just all the way back in the day in 2014, and you could just see this is where Bitcoin initially met and created this orange line. So Bitcoin has stayed at this orange line for quite a while, and that's where we're at now. Bitcoin, I think, is going to stay on this orange line as we continue to move forward into the future, whether we're well above it or well below it. It just seems like a fair value of where Bitcoin's price should be, and that's where we're at now. So in the long term, I think it's a fine place to buy Bitcoin because this line is going up. So as time passes, Bitcoin's price will continue to go up even at this orange line. And then now going back to this blue line here, I essentially copied this blue angle right here and I duplicated it to create this grid in the background. That's all these lighter lines right here. The reason why I have 0 through 5 is primarily because I think that Bitcoin's price could fall inside of these channels. Okay, so one channel would be this one right here all the way up. This is channel 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And right now Bitcoin's price is currently within channel 4, and we were in channel 3, as you guys can see right there. Channel 2 is where Bitcoin's price was at its all-time high of 69,000. Channel 1 is when we fell from 69,000 and revisited channel 1 right here, as well as right here and all throughout here. When Bitcoin was at its all-time high, it was in channel 2. We fell and entered back into channel 1, and we fell even into channel 0. And as we went sideways, look at this. When we were in channel 1 and we reached the end of it, we pumped right through channel 2 and entered into channel 3, and we went up and down, up and down. When we entered into channel 3, this was actually the very first time we entered it, because as you pull back, Bitcoin has never been in this channel before. And so we were in channel 2 and we broke into channel 3, and then now we're into channel 4. Typically what happens is that when Bitcoin starts to break into these channels here, Bitcoin tends to revisit these channels. The only time I see Bitcoin not revisiting the channels that it used to be in is when either it just continues to keep going sideways, breaking into new channels, or when Bitcoin goes on its major bull runs and it just continues to enter into new channels and never really revisits them back again. Let me just show you what I mean here. Take this example right here in 2017. Bitcoin pumps all the way up into this channel right here. So let's call this channel 0. When Bitcoin begins to fall, it fell entering into the channel before it, so -1, it falls even into -2, and then even into -3, and then we go sideways into back to -2, -1, only to break back down to -2, and then even into -3, which is where we were here and where we were here. And take this example here in 2014 when Bitcoin went from about 3,500 all the way up to about 14,000. We can see that Bitcoin entered into this channel, so we'll call it channel 0 for now. Bitcoin continues to stay in that channel, breaking back down to the channel before it, so channel -1, back into channel 0, -1, back into channel 0, and then we break into this new channel right here for the very first time, which is channel 1, and then it goes all the way back into 0, and then into -1, and then even into -2. So that's where we were here when we were pumping up. So right now we're here inside channel 4, and look at what happened here in channel 3. When we entered into channel 3, that was the very first time we entered into it because we were in channel 2 for a very long time. And when we entered into channel 3, we kind of just blasted right through it and made into channel 4. And I honestly think that we have the high potential to revisit channel 3 and certainly back into channel 2. And so what that really means is that if we continue to keep going sideways, potentially hugging this orange line, I think that we could revisit channel 3 for a slight moment, only to bounce all the way back through channel 4 and then even into channel 5. When we're in channel 5 in about, June or so, I think that we could potentially go all the way up to maybe about just under $40,000. I don't think that we're going to break this green line. This green line went through the all-time highs in February 2021 of 65,000, where it cut through it, and you could just see how Bitcoin's price kind of stayed at this green line. We fell below it and we tested it right here in September, and then we fell below it, went above it, went below, tested it, went below, tested it again, and we haven't visited that point ever since April of 2022. And I honestly think that is very high potential we could test it once again, getting people very bullish. I honestly don't know where Bitcoin's price is headed. So what I do is I really start to think about, how can Bitcoin do what it's always done, which is get people really bullish only to rug pull them and make them lose their shirt. So Benjamin Cowan always says Bitcoin bottoms and crypto bottoms on apathy. What apathy means is lack of interest and lack of concern. So I think that people are still very bullish about Bitcoin, and we haven't flushed out most people quite yet. So ever since the all-time highs of 69,000, Bitcoin has certainly been dropping down, but most people still believe in Bitcoin. They still think that if they hang on, that Bitcoin will continue to recover and bounce and go back to all-time highs. But if you believe that it's a given that Bitcoin and crypto bottoms on apathy, right now there's still a lot of people that are not quite apathied out yet. People still haven't felt maximum pain yet. And what would be the scenario that would get crypto and Bitcoin investors to feel max pain is, I think that when Bitcoin was falling here, eventually over time, people just expected Bitcoin to fall. And so everybody was kind of just like fine with it. But what would happen if people thought that Bitcoin already bottomed, getting people to think that Bitcoin had already bottomed and now pumping ever since then? If I measure this out here, ever since after the FTX crash, Bitcoin actually pumped up almost about 80%, just under 80%. People will think that Bitcoin actually bottomed somewhere here at around $16,000 to pump up about 80% and perhaps even pump up just under $40,000. $39,000 is where this green line is sitting. If Bitcoin actually makes it to this green line, people would really be extremely bullish, thinking that Bitcoin could potentially break $40,000 only for it to crash back down. That would really get people hurting and apathied all out. And so how low do I think Bitcoin can go? Well, like I said, I think that Bitcoin will eventually revisit these channels right here, certainly channel 3 and maybe even into channel 2. I don't think it'll probably reach channel 1. Why I have these hand waving emojis right here, because I really think that Bitcoin is going to play inside of these 4 channels in the next couple of months. So if I were to draw out what I think Bitcoin could potentially do, I honestly think it'll probably hover around this orange line for a while, really getting people bored, and then it'll probably dump, perhaps even touching into channel 3 and then pumping all the way up into channel 5 and maybe even almost reaching the top of channel 5, only to dump back down towards the middle to end of 2023. And so how low do I think Bitcoin could potentially fall? Like I said, it could possibly go back down into channel 3 because really we haven't stayed in channel 3 for very long. And so it could go all the way towards this orange line that we see here. I think that this orange line is potentially where Bitcoin could bottom out. Well, this orange line here is from the all-time highs. It's about 80% fall. And so Bitcoin tends to fall at around more than 80%. And every single time Bitcoin bottoms out, it falls less and less. So I think this time around, Bitcoin could potentially fall about 80%, which is right at this orange line here. And if I go ahead and pull back and show you guys where this orange line came from, this orange line was all the way back here in 2017 before it actually shot up. And you guys can just see that Bitcoin has hovered hovered at this orange line for quite a long time, even deep into 2013. And I think that there's also a chance that Bitcoin could bottom at this orange line even below that one, because as you guys can see, Bitcoin also tends to follow this orange line quite a bit as well. It could potentially bottom out sometime in the near future, maybe towards June or July at the top orange line, and perhaps Bitcoin could bottom sometime deeper or after 2013 at the second orange line. So maybe even a double bottom, very similar to what we saw back here in 2018 where Bitcoin bottomed out and where it bottomed out here during the pandemic crash. And just to recap, I think that Bitcoin is probably going to go sideways, getting people very bored the next couple weeks. It could probably go down to as low as maybe 24,000 or maybe as high as over $30,000 and probably even just under $40,000. So this will really get people bullish, only for the rug pull to happen and for people to lose their shirts. I think this is the perfect scenario to really get people apathied out, if that's even a word. But you know, Bitcoin has fallen ever since 69,000 and it's been going down ever since, only to have this really nice 80% pump. And so again, it gets people bullish, thinking that the bottom is already in and that we're going to go back to all-time highs. People start buying in, people start feeling FOMO'd out, only for the price to go back down and perhaps even make some new lows. So this is kind of what I think is going to play out as we move into the middle to the end of 2023. I could be potentially wrong, but I wanted to make this video and share and kind of document what I personally think is going to happen with Bitcoin. I think that the bottom is not in yet. We still have a lot of looming things that could potentially happen, like interest rates are still rising. The full effects of the interest rate hikes are going to take even more effect on the economy. More cracks in the economy, such as the bank situation, could potentially start arising and showing themselves. You know, the recession can hit, the layoffs can start getting worse, unemployment ticks up. And so I think there's a lot more pain to be had. And right now seems like about the time where it looks like things are recovering and getting better and doesn't seem quite that bad, get people bullish, only for there to be a rug pull somewhere in the middle to the end of 2023. All right, guys, that's about it for the video. If you enjoyed it, definitely hit that thumbs up button. It really helps out the channel. Also hit that subscribe button for more videos like these. My name is Jimmy Invest, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.